In the endless forests of the north, where winter holds the land in an iron grip for months on end, there walks something ancient, something that was once human. The indigenous peoples of the northern forests have whispered warnings about it for centuries. A creature born of desperation and taboo, a monster with an insatiable hunger that grows with every meal. The Wendigo, a name that carries dread through the ages. A curse that transforms a person into something else. Welcome to the coldest, darkest corners of North American folklore. Today, we journey into the heart of one of the most disturbing legends ever told. To understand the Wendigo, we must first understand its origins. The legend comes from the Algonquian-speaking peoples, nations including the Ojibwe, Cree, Naskapi, and others, whose territories span across what is now Canada and the northern United States. These were lands where winter could be merciless, where starvation was a real threat, where the line between survival and death grew razor thin during the harshest months. It was in this context that the Wendigo emerged, not merely as a monster tale, but as a profound cultural warning against the ultimate taboo: cannibalism. For the Algonquian peoples, the Wendigo was both a physical threat lurking in the wilderness and a spiritual affliction, a possession or transformation that could befall anyone who consumed human flesh, even in the most desperate circumstances. The Wendigo is not just a story we tell children. It is a warning about what happens when human needs overcome human values. When hunger consumes not just the body but the spirit. But the Wendigo represents something even deeper, an embodiment of greed, gluttony, and the dangers of excess. A creature that, no matter how much it consumes, only grows larger, hungrier, and more desperate with each victim. This is where the true horror of the Wendigo lies. It is trapped in an eternal cycle of insatiable craving. A metaphor, perhaps, for the destructive potential of unchecked human desire. So what exactly does a Wendigo look like? While depictions vary across different traditions and modern interpretations, certain features remain consistent in the original folklore. The Wendigo is often described as unnaturally tall and gaunt, a walking skeleton barely covered by tightly stretched, ash-gray skin. Its frame can reach 15 feet in height, yet appears starved to the point of death. Its flesh is said to be frozen, sometimes described as ice-like or misshapen, with the cold of winter emanating from its body. The eyes glow like embers in sunken sockets, watching, hunting. Some descriptions include antlers or horns protruding from its skull, though this may be a more modern addition to the legend. Others describe long, jagged teeth and claws, perfect for tearing apart prey. The creature's breath reeks of decay and corruption. The stench of death follows it through the forest. And perhaps most disturbingly, some accounts claim that the faces of its victims can be seen, frozen in agony, beneath its translucent skin. Its cry is said to mimic human voices, sometimes calling out like a person in distress to lure rescuers to their doom. Other times, it unleashes an otherworldly howl that freezes the blood of all who hear it. Despite its massive size, the Wendigo moves with supernatural speed and stealth through the forest. A hunter of terrible efficiency that can stalk its prey for days before striking. Perhaps most chilling is how one becomes a Wendigo. The transformation isn't merely a physical attack, it's a spiritual possession, a curse that can be contracted. The most common path is through cannibalism. When faced with starvation in the brutal northern winters, a person who resorts to consuming human flesh invites the Wendigo spirit into themselves. The change begins slowly, First comes an unnatural hunger that cannot be satisfied. Then, physical changes. The eyes grow jaundiced, the skin pale and cold. The person becomes increasingly isolated, aggressive, paranoid. As the transformation progresses, their body begins to twist and elongate. Their humanity slips away until only the monster remains, a being driven by an eternal, insatiable hunger. But consumption of human flesh isn't the only way to become a Wendigo. Some traditions speak of the Wendigo spirit possessing individuals who display excessive greed or selfishness. Others tell of dreams where the Wendigo calls to the vulnerable, gradually turning them through nightmares and whispered temptations. This spiritual dimension of the Wendigo is what elevates it above ordinary monsters. It isn't just something that hunts you, it's something you might become. The Wendigo's grip on the human imagination has been so powerful that it gave rise to a documented psychological condition, Wendigo psychosis. This rare condition was observed by both indigenous healers and later by European doctors working in northern communities. Individuals suffering from this psychosis would display an irrational fear of becoming a Wendigo, combined with violent urges and a disturbing craving for human flesh. Historical records from the late 1800s and early 1900s document cases where individuals became convinced they were transforming into Wendigos. Some reported feeling ice forming in their bodies, seeing their hands elongating into claws, and experiencing an overwhelming hunger that no normal food could satisfy. One of the most notorious cases was that of Swift Runner, a Cree man who killed and consumed his family during the winter of 1878 to 79. During his trial, he claimed to be possessed by a Wendigo spirit. While modern interpretations might point to severe mental illness exacerbated by starvation and trauma, his case exemplifies how deeply the Wendigo fear was embedded in northern cultures. Indigenous communities had various methods for treating those afflicted with Wendigo psychosis. These included healing ceremonies, specialized sweat lodges, and herbal remedies. In extreme cases where an individual was deemed dangerous to the community, more drastic measures might be taken. While some academic debates continue about whether Wendigo psychosis was a culture-bound syndrome or a manifestation of other mental illnesses under extreme conditions, what's undeniable is the profound psychological impact of the Wendigo legend on northern communities. Today's Wendigo appears in horror films, television shows like Supernatural and Hannibal, video games, and countless novels. These modern interpretations often focus on the physical monster while losing sight of the deeper cultural significance. And in the deep northern forests, the legend lives on. Contemporary accounts of Wendigo encounters continue to emerge from isolated communities. Reports of unnaturally tall figures glimpsed between trees during blizzards. Strange tracks in the snow that suddenly disappear, haunting cries that sound almost human but not quite. Are these simply the persistence of traditional stories in communities still connected to their heritage, or is there something more to these accounts? Something ancient that still haunts the coldest, darkest corners of our continent? Throughout history, there have been numerous alleged encounters with Wendigo entities. While skeptics dismiss these as hallucinations brought on by exposure, starvation, or isolation, the consistency of these reports across time and geography is unsettling. In Algonquian traditions, the Wendigo was not just feared, but actively guarded against through specific cultural practices. Anthropological records document several methods communities used to protect themselves. The use of sacred medicines is well documented in multiple Algonquian cultures. Historical accounts mention tobacco offerings as being particularly significant. Tobacco was used extensively in ritual contexts as a protective and purifying substance. Cedar, sage, and sweetgrass were similarly important in purification ceremonies that might ward off dangerous spirits or influences. Fire played a central role in protection, both practically and spiritually. Fire was considered one of the few elements that could destroy a Wendigo, particularly by burning its heart. This aligns with numerous accounts where Wendigos are described as having hearts of ice that must be melted to truly defeat them. The Wendigo stands as one of North America's most terrifying legendary figures, a creature born from our darkest human fears and failures, a warning wrapped in a nightmare. So when the storm clouds gather and you hear your name in the wind, remember, the Wendigo is more than a story. It is the shadow of our own hunger and fear, forever roaming the frozen night. The Wendigo doesn't just eat, it corrupts. It turns people into monsters. It spreads through silence, through secrets, through acts of desperation. And worst of all, you may never know it's taken hold until you hear yourself whisper, "I'm still hungry."